Imagine this. Centuries of grandeur, vaulted chambers reaching toward the sky, limestone walls thick and strong, mud brick vaults towering overhead. But the ruler? His name was erased. In the heart of ancient Egypt, archaeologists made a discovery. They found something impossible, a 3,600-year-old burial site. It belonged to a pharaoh, but his identity vanished. Who could erase a king? What secret did his enemies hide? Why did history refuse to remember him? Tonight, we go inside a tomb. It was built for immortality, but it was designed for oblivion. At the foot of Anubis mountain, in the ancient city of Abydos, a nameless king waits. His story was buried, his power was forgotten, his legacy was cursed. Until now, the desert wind howls across the sand. Egypt's ancient necropolis sleeps beneath the dunes, the city of Abydos, sacred ground for thousands of years. But the grandeur hides a secret. January 2025. A team of archaeologists gathers at dawn. They come from Penn Museum in Philadelphia. They work with Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities. Their leader is Joseph Wegener. He has spent years digging in this zone. They thought they knew this place. They were wrong. The team starts digging, 7 meters down into the earth. That's 23 feet below the surface. The sand gives way to stone. Then they see it. A limestone chamber. Massive, royal. The walls are thick. The ceilings vault upward. 5 meters high. That's 16 feet of carved mud brick arching overhead. This is no simple grave. This is a palace for the dead. Therefore, they know immediately. This tomb belonged to someone important, someone powerful, someone royal. But then they notice something strange. The walls have spaces for inscriptions. The entrance has carvings of goddesses. Isis and Nephthys guard the doorway. Their names are clear, but the king's name? It's gone. In ancient Egypt, your name was everything. Without your name, you couldn't reach the afterlife. Your soul would wander forever, lost, forgotten, destroyed. Therefore, a pharaoh without a name is impossible. It breaks every rule of Egyptian belief. It shatters everything they held sacred. The team moves deeper into the chamber. They search for cartouches. These are the oval symbols that hold royal names. Every pharaoh had them carved everywhere, on walls, on columns, on every surface that mattered. But here, the cartouches are blank, smoothed over, deliberately erased. Wegener examines the stone. He runs his fingers over the surface. You can still feel where the chisels bit into the limestone. Someone worked hard to remove this name. They wanted it gone, forever. His name was in the inscriptions, Wegener says. His voice is quiet. But it does not survive. Therefore, this isn't just a tomb. It's a crime scene. Someone murdered this king's memory. They killed him twice. Once in life, once in death. The magnitude of this hits the team hard. They stand in silence. This chamber is huge. The architecture is sophisticated. The tomb sits next to the complex of Neferhotep Uats. That was a known pharaoh, a powerful one. But this tomb is bigger. Therefore, the unknown king may have been even more powerful than Neferhotep. He may have ruled longer, built more, commanded greater respect. So why was he erased? What did he do? Who wanted him forgotten? The team photographs everything. They measure the walls. They document the blank spaces where names should be. Every detail matters now, because this tomb is different from anything they've found before. It dates to 3,600 years ago, the Second Intermediate Period, a time of chaos in Egypt, multiple kingdoms fighting for control, the Hyksos invaders ruling the north, local dynasties scrambling for power in the south. This was Egypt's dark age. But even in dark ages, kings kept their names. They had to. Their immortality depended on it. Therefore, the erasure of this name means something darker, something intentional, something political. The archaeologists work through the day as the sun beats down. They find fragments of pottery, pieces of broken jars, evidence of ancient looting. The tomb was robbed long ago. Most of the treasure is gone. The body is gone. The burial goods are gone. But the architecture remains. The empty chamber stands, and the absence of that name screams louder than any inscription could. As night falls, Wegener stands at the entrance. He looks up at the vaulted ceiling. Somewhere, 3,600 years ago, Workers built this place. They carved the stone. They painted the walls. They prepared it for their king. But then something happened. Something terrible, and that king's name was wiped from existence. If this king was deliberately erased, Wegener says into the darkness, we need to know why, and we need to know who did it. The stars come out above Abydos. The desert grows cold. Inside the tomb, the mystery deepens. Who was this king? What power did he threaten? Why did Egypt want him forgotten? The answers lie buried in the sand and in the twisted politics of ancient Egypt's most chaotic era. To understand this tomb, we must understand its time. We must go back to Egypt's second intermediate period, back to chaos. The year is approximately 1640 BCE. Egypt is broken. For centuries, Egypt was one kingdom, strong, united, but not anymore. The Hyksos have invaded from the northeast. They control the Nile Delta. They rule Lower Egypt with foreign kings and foreign gods. Therefore, the traditional pharaohs lose their power. They retreat south to Upper Egypt, to Thebes, to Abydos. But even there, unity crumbles. Multiple dynasties claim the throne. Local rulers carve out their own kingdoms. Everyone wants to be pharaoh. No one can agree who the real pharaoh is. This is when the Abydos dynasty emerges. A line of kings ruling from this sacred city. They control a small territory. They build their tombs here in the necropolis, at the foot of Anubis mountain. But historians know almost nothing about them. The records are sparse. The king lists are incomplete. These rulers lived and died in shadow. Therefore, when archaeologists discovered this tomb, it opened a window into darkness, a chance to understand a forgotten dynasty, a lost chapter of Egyptian history. The team already knew about other tombs here. In 2014, they found the burial of Senebkai, another king of the Abydos dynasty. His tomb was smaller, simpler, less grand, but it gave them crucial information. It proved this dynasty existed. It confirmed these were real kings, not legends or mistakes in ancient texts. Senebkai's tomb also showed signs of violence. His bones bore cut marks, axe wounds. He died in battle. His burial was rushed, hasty. His grave goods were recycled from older tombs. Therefore, the Abydos dynasty was fighting for survival. These kings weren't sitting safely in palaces. They were at war, constantly, desperately. Now the team stands in this new tomb. They compare it to Senebkai's burial. The difference is staggering. This tomb is massive. The vaults are taller. The chamber is wider. The limestone is higher quality. The construction took more time, more workers, more resources. Therefore, this unknown king was wealthier than Senebkai, more powerful. Perhaps he ruled longer. Perhaps he controlled more territory. But if he was so powerful, why is his name gone? The question haunts everyone. The team examines the entrance more carefully. The goddesses Isis and Nephthys are carved there. They guard the dead king's journey to the afterlife. Their names are intact, perfect, readable. But between them, where the king's name should be, smooth stone, deliberately worked. Someone spent hours chiseling away every hieroglyph. This wasn't natural decay. This wasn't erosion from wind and sand. This was intentional destruction. Therefore, this king didn't just die. He was punished after death. Someone wanted his name erased, his memory destroyed, his soul condemned to eternal wandering. The Romans had a term for this: damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. When someone angered the state, their name was removed from all monuments, from all inscriptions, from all records, as if they never existed. Did the Egyptians do the same thing? Was this unknown king guilty of something? Did he lose a war, betray his people, anger the gods? Or was he simply on the wrong side of history? Did a rival dynasty defeat him and erase his legacy? The evidence points in troubling directions. The tomb sits within the older complex of Neferhotep Mal. That's significant. Neferhotep was a known king, a legitimate ruler, but this unknown king built his tomb right next to Neferhotep's, maybe even appropriating some of Neferhotep's sacred space. That's bold. That suggests confidence, power, ambition. Therefore, this king wanted to be remembered alongside the great Neferhotep. He wanted his tomb to declare his legitimacy, his royal right to rule. But it backfired. Spectacularly, instead of immortality, he got oblivion. Instead of glory, he got erasure. His very attempt to secure his legacy may have been what destroyed it. The sun sets over Abydos. The team packs up for the day, but questions swirl through their minds. This tomb is speaking to them across millennia, but its message is encrypted in silence. Tomorrow, they'll dig deeper. They'll search for more clues. They'll piece together fragments of a lost king's story. Because somewhere in this necropolis, between the sand and the stone, the truth is waiting. The truth about why Egypt wanted one of its kings forgotten, and that truth may rewrite everything we thought we knew. The team returns at dawn. Today they go deeper into the tomb. They descend 7 meters below the desert floor. The air is cool down here, still, heavy with history. The walls are plastered. Ancient workers smoothed them carefully. They prepared perfect surfaces for inscriptions and paintings. Every detail was meant to guide the king through the afterlife, but the decorations tell a fractured story. The standard royal iconography is there, the sun god Ra, the scales of judgment, the journey through the underworld, all the scenes a pharaoh would need, but the most important part is missing, the name. Therefore, they have all the context, but none of the identity. It's like finding a portrait with the face cut out. You can see the frame, the background, the clothing, but the person, gone. The team works methodically. They brush away centuries of sand and debris. They photograph every surface. They catalogue every fragment. This is painstaking work, slow, careful, essential, but obstacles mount quickly. The tomb was looted in antiquity. Grave robbers broke in centuries ago. They smashed the sarcophagus. They stole the burial goods. They scattered what they couldn't sell. Therefore, standard identification methods won't work here. Normally, archaeologists read the cartouches, or they examine burial equipment, or they study the mummy's coffin inscriptions. But here, nothing. The name panels are blank. The sarcophagus is destroyed. The burial goods are long gone. Then there's the water table. It's rising, slowly but steadily. If they don't act fast, parts of the tomb could flood. Precious information could be lost forever. Egyptian government regulations add pressure too. They need permits for every action. They need approvals for removing artifacts. The paperwork alone could take months. Therefore, the team must balance speed with caution. They must hurry, but they cannot make mistakes. One wrong move could destroy irreplaceable evidence. Despite these challenges, discoveries emerge. The team finds fragments of canopic jars. These held the king's internal organs during mummification. It's a crucial find. But when they examine the fragments closely, their hearts sink. The jars are beautifully carved, expertly made, but the cartouches? Blank, smoothed over, erased. Even the king's organs got the treatment. Even in death, in pieces, scattered across the chamber floor, his name was systematically removed. The architectural measurements reveal more mysteries. The vaulted ceiling is 5 meters high. That's exceptional. Most tombs of this period are smaller, lower, less ambitious. The chamber dimensions match royal tomb construction from the Middle Kingdom, the great age of pyramid building. This unknown king was copying the styles of Egypt's golden age. He was declaring himself equal to the great pharaohs of old. Therefore, his ambition was enormous. He didn't just want to be remembered. He wanted to be remembered as great, as legitimate, as worthy. But something went catastrophically wrong. The team finds evidence everywhere. Chisel marks where names were removed. Smooth patches where cartouches were erased. Fragments of inscriptions that end mid-word, deliberately damaged. This wasn't random vandalism. This wasn't the work of common thieves. This was systematic, professional, thorough. Someone with authority ordered this. Someone with resources carried it out. Someone with a grudge made sure it was complete. The team photographs the damage patterns. They notice something chilling. The erasure work was done carefully. The surrounding hieroglyphs weren't damaged. The artwork of Isis and Nephthys remained perfect. Only the king's identifying information was targeted. Therefore, this was political, personal, vindictive. Deep in the debris, they find more fragments, pieces of pottery, shards of stone vessels, bits of wooden furniture reduced to splinters by time and looters. But one fragment catches the light differently. Wegener picks it up. brushes it off, examines it closely. It's part of a canopic jar, but this one has partial hieroglyphs. Incomplete, damaged, but something. He can make out part of a throne name, Woza, something. The rest is gone, but it's a start, a thread, a clue. Therefore, they have their first real lead, but it raises more questions than it answers. No known king from this period has a throne name starting with Woza. Is this a completely unknown pharaoh? Someone not even recorded in the fragmentary king lists? Or is the inscription misleading, damaged, misread? The sun climbs higher outside. Inside the tomb, the mystery deepens. The team knows they're standing in the burial chamber of someone important. Someone powerful, someone deliberately erased from history. But who and why? The answers are here, somewhere, in the stone, in the silence. In the absence of that cursed name, multiple threads converge now. The looting thread, the erasure thread, the dynastic politics thread. Each one adds layers of confusion, but together they start to form a pattern. Therefore, the team shifts approach. They stop looking for the name. Instead, they look at what the erasure reveals. Who had the power to do this? Who had the motive? The hieroglyphic traces at the entrance provide the first big clue. The goddesses Isis and Nephthys are carved in relief. Their names are perfect. Every symbol clear and readable. But the king's name field between them? It's not just blank. It's been smoothed with tools. You can see the chisel marks in certain light. Someone spent hours making sure nothing remained. Therefore, this suggests a conscious, deliberate act. Not decay, not accident, not random damage from looters. This was state-sanctioned erasure. But why preserve the goddesses while destroying the king? Because the goddesses were eternal. They couldn't be touched. Their names had divine protection. But a mortal king? Even a pharaoh, his memory could be killed. The team discovers another crucial detail. The tomb's location isn't random. It sits within the funerary complex of Neferhotep. Wait, that's a known king from the Abydos dynasty. Neferhotep built his monuments here. He established this as royal ground. But then this unknown king built his tomb right in the same complex, almost on top of it. Therefore, the unknown king was making a statement. He was declaring himself Neferhotep's equal, or his successor, or his rival. But if they were allies, why build so close? If they were rivals, why would the unknown king be allowed to build here at all? Unless the unknown king came later and appropriated the space, or unless he came earlier and Neferhotep built near him deliberately. The chronology is murky, the dates uncertain, but the political implications are explosive. The team brings in specialists, experts in second intermediate period history, scholars who've studied the fragmentary king lists, archaeologists who know every ruler from this chaotic era. They compare notes, they debate, they argue. Two candidate names emerge from the ancient texts. Sennacherib, a king mentioned in one or two inscriptions. Almost nothing is known about him. Pentgeni, another shadowy figure from the king lists. His reign length is unknown, his achievements unrecorded, but neither name fits perfectly with the evidence. The tomb is too grand for such minor kings, the architecture too sophisticated, the location too prestigious. Therefore, the team faces a shocking possibility. What if this king isn't in any of the surviving records? What if he was so thoroughly erased that even the king lists forgot him? That would be unprecedented, but it's possible, likely even. The personal stakes become clear now. The archaeologists realize they're not just uncovering stones, they're uncovering a story of betrayal, of power struggles, of civil war, of victors' history. History is written by the winners. Everyone knows that, but here's physical proof. Here's a tomb that screams, "I was a king," while the record books whisper, "No, you weren't." Therefore, the narrative shifts. This isn't just archaeology anymore. It's forensic history. It's detective work. It's a cold case from 3,600 years ago. Wegener stands in the chamber and tries to imagine it. A king building his tomb, planning his eternity, believing his name would last forever. That's what every pharaoh believed. That's what the whole system promised. But then something happened. A war, maybe? A coup? A betrayal? The king fell. His enemies took power. And they didn't just kill him. They killed his memory. They attacked his soul. They denied him the afterlife. That's the ultimate Egyptian curse. Worse than death, worse than torture. To be unnamed is to be unmade. The team takes new photographs. They create 3D scans of the chamber. They document every chisel mark where the name was removed, every smooth patch where cartouches were destroyed. This evidence will be studied for years, decades. It's an archaeological goldmine, but it's also heartbreaking because no matter how much they learn about the tomb, they may never learn about the man. The unknown king will stay unknown. The erased pharaoh will stay erased. Unless they find something else, some overlooked clue, some fragment they missed. Therefore, they keep digging, keep searching, keep hoping, because this king deserves better than oblivion. Even 3,600 years later, even from beyond the grave, his name was stolen. But maybe, just maybe, it can be found. The worst-case scenario becomes clear. This discovery could rewrite the timeline of Upper Egypt completely. If this king built a tomb larger than Senebkai's, and if he did it before Senebkai, then everything historians thought about this period is wrong. Therefore, textbooks need revision. Chronologies need adjustment. The entire understanding of the Abydos dynasty is up for grabs. But it's more than academic. It's personal. It's human. Imagine being this king. Imagine spending years building your tomb, hiring workers, carving stone, planning every detail. You believe you're securing your eternity. You believe your name will echo through the ages. But then you die. And within years, maybe even months, your enemies destroy it all. They enter your tomb. They scratch out your name. They erase your cartouches. They condemn your soul. Therefore, the human cost of this erasure becomes unbearable to consider. This wasn't just politics. It was cruelty. It was revenge carried beyond the grave. The team finds the fragment with Woza again. They study it under different lights. They photograph it from every angle. They compare it to known throne names from the period, but it doesn't match anything. It's either damaged beyond recognition, or it belongs to someone completely unknown to us. Therefore, they're looking at a pharaoh who's not just unnamed in his tomb, he's unnamed in history. A king so thoroughly erased that even fragmentary records don't acknowledge him. That's extraordinary. That's unprecedented. That's terrifying. The pressure on the team increases dramatically now. News of the discovery spreads. Media outlets want interviews. Documentaries want access. The Egyptian government wants updates. Funding agencies demand results. Academic institutions need publications. Everyone wants answers that the team doesn't have yet. But there's a darker pressure too. Looters still operate in this area. The tomb's location is no longer secret. Security must be increased. Guards must be posted. Time is running out. Therefore, the team's focus becomes divided. They need to document everything, but they also need to protect everything, and they still need to solve the mystery. Meanwhile, the architectural evidence continues to speak. The limestone chamber walls are remarkably well preserved in some sections. You can see the original polish, the careful smoothing, the preparation for inscriptions that would honor a king. But in other sections, the walls show violence, not from looters, from erasers. Someone attacked this tomb with purpose. They weren't stealing, they were destroying memory. The mud brick vaults overhead are engineering marvels. 5 meters high, arching perfectly, supporting their own weight for 3,600 years. Only a wealthy, powerful king could command such construction. Therefore, the contrast grows sharper. The grandeur versus the anonymity, the ambition versus the erasure, the immortality project versus the obliteration. Everything converges on one inescapable conclusion. This king was deliberately erased. Not by accident, not by time, by people, by enemies, by victors who wanted him forgotten. But why? That's the question that haunts everyone. What could a pharaoh do that would justify this level of condemnation? Wegener proposes several theories. Maybe the king tried to unify Upper Egypt and failed. Maybe he claimed a legitimacy he didn't have. Maybe he angered the priesthood. Maybe he lost a crucial battle. Or maybe he was simply on the wrong side when the civil wars ended. When the Hyksos were finally driven out of Egypt, when the Theban kings reunified the country, all the little dynasties were absorbed or eliminated. Therefore, The Abydos dynasty, these shadowy kings ruling from this sacred city, were swept away by history. And perhaps this unknown king was their greatest champion, their last stand, their final hope. And when he fell, his enemies made sure no one would remember him. They turned his tomb into a warning. They transformed his monument into his curse. The team prepares for the next phase of excavation. They'll explore adjacent chambers. They'll search for any overlooked inscriptions. They'll sift through every fragment of debris, because somewhere in this necropolis, the truth is waiting. Maybe not the name, maybe never the name, but at least the story, the reason, the why. Tomorrow, they'll attempt to answer the biggest question. They'll confront what the evidence is screaming at them. They'll reveal why this king was erased. And when they do, the world will understand something profound about power, about memory, about the brutal mathematics of history. The unknown king is about to speak, not with his name, but with his silence. The final pieces fall into place now. The team assembles everything they know: the architecture, the location, the erasure, the timing, the political context. Therefore, they reach a conclusion. It's not definite. It can't be. But it's the best explanation that fits all the evidence. This tomb belonged to a king who tried to unify Upper Egypt. During the chaos of the Second Intermediate Period, while the Hyksos controlled the north, this king saw an opportunity. He gathered power. He built alliances. He expanded his territory. He was ambitious, powerful, successful even. He built this massive tomb to declare his legitimacy. He positioned it next to Neferhotep's complex to claim royal heritage. He commanded resources that other Abydos dynasty kings couldn't match. But then he was defeated, maybe by Theban kings from the south, maybe by rival dynasties, maybe by the Hyksos themselves. The records don't tell us, but the tomb does. Therefore, this was no ordinary burial. This was the tomb of a vanquished king hero, a ruler who rose high and fell hard. A pharaoh who threatened the existing order and paid the ultimate price. And his enemies didn't just kill him, they killed his memory. They went into his tomb, the sacred space he built for eternity, and they systematically erased him. The evidence is overwhelming now. The borrowed architectural elements, the prestigious location, the massive scale, the defaced name panels. All of it points to one truth. This king wanted immortality. He built for it. He planned for it. He believed in it, but immortality was denied, not by the gods, by people, by politics, by revenge. Standing in the chamber now feels different. The team feels the weight of it, the grandeur of the architecture versus the cruelty of the erasure, the ambition of the builder versus the thoroughness of the destroyers. Wegener's voice shakes when he speaks. We can feel his ambition here, in every stone, in every vault, in every smooth wall prepared for his name. He pauses, looks around the chamber, runs his hand over the blank cartouche field, and we can feel his loss, the violence of the erasure, the determination of his enemies. They wanted him gone, completely, forever. Therefore, this tomb becomes something else. Not just archaeology, not just history. It becomes a memorial to erasure itself, a monument to what happens when power shifts and the losers are condemned. The emotional peak hits everyone at once. Imagine being the workers who built this tomb. You carved these stones. You painted these walls. You believed you were securing your king's afterlife. But then you're ordered to come back, to destroy what you created, to erase the name you inscribed, to betray the king you served. Did they refuse? Did they weep? Did they have a choice? And imagine being the king's family, his wife, his children, his priests, watching as his name is systematically removed, knowing his soul is being murdered, unable to stop it. Therefore, this tomb holds layers of trauma, personal, political, spiritual, cultural. The broader payoff becomes clear now. This discovery forces historians to confront an uncomfortable truth. Legacy is fragile. Memory is political. Even kings can be cancelled. We think of pharaohs as timeless, immortal, remembered forever. But that's propaganda. That's what they wanted us to believe. The reality is messier, crueler, more human. Power determines who is remembered. Whoever wins the war writes the history. Whoever controls the present controls the past. Therefore, This unknown king becomes a universal symbol. He represents everyone who was erased, everyone who was written out of history, everyone whose story was stolen by those who came after. The team takes final photographs as the sun sets. Golden light floods the chamber through the entrance. It illuminates the blank cartouches. It makes the smooth, erased panels glow. It's beautiful and terrible at once. A tomb built for a king, empty of his name, full of his absence. The promise of the opening is fulfilled now. The tomb built for immortality, but designed for oblivion, makes perfect sense. The king didn't design it for oblivion. His enemies did. They took his monument and transformed it into his curse. But there's a twist, a final irony, because now, 3,600 years later, archaeologists are talking about him, studying him, wondering about him. The erasure failed. Not completely. His name is still gone, but his story survives. And maybe that's enough. The excavation continues today. The team hasn't stopped. They're exploring adjacent chambers, searching for more tombs, hoping to find more pieces of this puzzle. Therefore, the unknown king's story isn't over. Not yet. Maybe somewhere in the sand, another inscription waits, another fragment with a name, another clue. But realistically, they may never know. His identity might be lost forever. The erasure might be permanent, and the team has to accept that. Wegener reflects on this in a quiet moment. "We restore ancient Egypt," he says. "We rebuild fallen temples. We reconstruct broken statues. We give names back to the nameless when we can." He pauses, looks back at the tomb entrance. But some erasures are too complete. Some memories are too broken. And we have to accept that sometimes the best we can do is acknowledge the loss. Therefore, the unknown king will likely stay unknown, at least officially, at least in the history books. But he's not forgotten anymore. Not really, because this discovery has sparked global interest. Newspapers write about him, documentaries feature him, students learn about him. The tomb draws visitors who want to see where the nameless king sleeps. In a strange way, he's becoming famous for being anonymous. He's being remembered for being forgotten. That's not what he wanted, but it's something. The broader implications ripple outward now. When we erase names today, what are we really doing? In our own time, we see memory fights everywhere. Statues get torn down. Names get removed from buildings. Historical figures get cancelled. Entire narratives get rewritten. It's controversial, divisive, painful. But this tomb shows us that memory battles aren't new. Ancient Egyptians did this. Ancient Romans did this. Every civilization does this. History is always being rewritten by whoever has power now. Therefore, the unknown king becomes a mirror. He reflects our own struggles with memory and legacy back at us. We see ourselves in his erasure. We see our own fights in his forgotten name. What does it mean when we erase someone? Are we correcting history or controlling it? Are we seeking justice or revenge? The tomb doesn't answer these questions, but it forces us to ask them. The emotional reflection deepens. Every viewer watching this must wonder now, what will your legacy be? What name will you leave behind? What happens if your name gets forgotten? For most of us, our names won't last. We're not kings. We don't build tombs. We don't carve inscriptions in stone. Our names will fade with our grandchildren, maybe our great-grandchildren, then nothing. Is that okay? Or does it hurt? Does it make life meaningless? Or does it free us? The unknown king can't answer, but his empty tomb whispers something profound. Names fade, power ends, kingdoms fall, but stories persist. Even stories about erasure, even stories about silence. Therefore, maybe the lesson isn't about preserving your name. Maybe it's about living a life worth remembering, even if no one remembers it. Even if your name gets lost, the team packs up their equipment as another day ends. The sun sets over Abydos. The ancient necropolis returns to silence. Guards take up positions around the tomb. Tourists depart. Archaeologists head home. But the tomb remains. 7 meters underground. Limestone walls. Vaulted ceilings. Blank cartouches. Empty name fields. A king sleeps there. Nameless. But not nothing. Not anymore. We return to the entrance now. The same entrance we started at. The goddesses Isis and Nephthys still guard the doorway. Their names still clear and perfect. Between them, the smooth stone where the king's name should be. In the right light, you can still see the chisel marks, the tool scars where erasers worked to remove his identity. They worked hard, they were thorough, they succeeded, but they didn't succeed completely, because we know he existed. We know he was powerful. We know he built this tomb. We know he was erased. Therefore, he's not gone. Not really. His name is gone. His identity is gone. But his story survives. His mystery endures. His curse lives on. A single phrase could be carved there now, not by ancient hands, but by understanding, by archaeology, by history, finally seeing what was hidden. Built for eternity, name erased, memory remains. The desert wind blows across Abydos. Sand drifts over the threshold. The stars emerge overhead. And somewhere, in the darkness of the chamber, the unknown king rests. Nameless, but not forgotten, not anymore.